It's Jefferson, climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness! Come
on! What is going on, everyone? AP over here at Rumpier Sports, bringing to you once again. We got the Lineup Builder Show with our partners, SaberSim. I'm here with the two fellas again. We got what could be the final game of the NBA season. We'll obviously give our thoughts. Before I kick it to Rubio and Glock, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, helps us out a lot. We are running a promo right now, Summer 33 for 33% off your first payment over here at Rumpier Sports. Sign up, use that code, get the discount that we have going right now. We also have to shout out, one, LeBrier and Rez the GOAT, two more awesome predictions. They were actually the closest, but they already won the swag from from game 3. So they can't win again. The next closest was Jason Graham. So Jason, if you're in chat today, hit us up on Twitter, hit me up in the Discord, and we'll get you out some swag. Congrats again to the winners. Glock, let's bring you in first. How's it going, my man? Give me your takeaways real quick from game 4.
Yeah, so I would say this show is kind of a little bittersweet, right? I think, the first show we kind of gave our series predictions, and, a lot of people were saying, Denver in 4, Denver in 5, and it might end up being that way. Might be the closeout game tonight. So obviously I'm saying it's a little bittersweet because this could be our last Saber, NBA show of the year. So, obviously if that's the case, looking forward to running it back next year for sure. But yeah, I think we were on point with most of the takes that we gave in the show. Realized that MPJ wasn't really needed. So he rode Pine again. Bruce Brown looked amazing. Aaron Gordon looked amazing. So those were the kind of guys that Malone rode with. And yeah, I think we touched on in the last show where, that zone adjustment that Denver made to beat it kind of felt like checkmate. And, I feel like I saw less of the zone, but we did see more of what we said, like more Caleb Martin, more on-ball guys, more Caleb Lowry. I think we'll see more of that again today, which we'll get into, because I think Spo's going to have to – I think he's going to have to make a lineup change. I don't think he's going to stick with the same guys, more specifically a guy like Max Strus. I never was really a fan of starting a dude. I get he can get hot, but if you have no intention of playing him to close the game, which he has not played in the fourth quarter of this series yet, I think there's possible change going to be made there, whether it be Caleb Martin going into the starting lineup, for more defensive purposes, which he can also provide offense, but also think a guy that showed up in big games for the Heat, is Duncan Robinson. I think he could slide into the starting lineup. And, that'll have some huge implications for DFS because Caleb Martin is getting cheaper. Duncan Robinson is fairly cheap as well. So we'll get into that. But yeah, I think Denver's now going home. They took both the road games in convincing fashion for the most part. And, I think we really hit it on the head last show where it kind of felt like checkmate for Denver. And I think they go home and they close it out. So it's truly checkmate. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the last game.
Yeah, everything is just lining up for this, Nuggets in 5. I think a lot of us were on that prediction. And it seems very unlikely that they don't come into this one completely just locked in, ready to go. Before I kick it over to Rubio, yeah, so game 4, the captain, so it was an Aaron Gordon captain. He absolutely went off. He was my favorite captain in game 3. My favorite captain in game 4, Caleb Martin, unfortunately. You live and you learn. The little flop lag, as our guy Snyder always talks about. The one thing, too, that worked, so we talked heavily about the rule, so creating a group of Jokic, Bam, and Jamal Murray, and having 2 of the 3, that rule was a good one. Obviously, we had Jokic and Bam both in the utility spot. The other guy that we're starting to creep up, kind of this new correlation that we're seeing, is Kyle Lowry. So maybe we make a 4-man group and we say 3 of the guys must be in this one. But before we get into strategy talk and diving into Saber and everything that we have in front of us, Rubio, what is going on, my man? what was your takeaways from Game 4?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good game. It just felt like Denver really just kind of put their foot on the throat of the Miami Heat. Jamal Murray didn't play well. Jokic had foul trouble, and they still ended up winning by 15. So it's gonna be bittersweet. I think this is the last game that we got. And no matter what the Heat do, I mean, it just felt like it wasn't good enough. And I'm with Glock. It might be Max Strus being taken out of the rotation tonight. And this is where it sucks when it's Showdown. We can make this prediction beforehand, and everyone's going to have access to that news beforehand and stuff. It's not like it's a late game on a 2-game slate where Martin's going to start over Strus, but we're all going to have access to that. And I think Strus might be the lineup piece that gets changed. Another 0-point performance, shot horribly, only got 5 boards and stuff as a complete negative on defense. Like, it would make sense to more size up against AG, who has been absolutely dominating this series. And that's been one of those things where Aaron Gordon, after almost a dismal Lakers series for the most part, it's not his fault. He's a defensive first player for the most part, but he didn't really shine on the DFS streets until Game 4. And then also in the last 2 games, he's done really well. Last game in particular, he was the optimal captain. And that's where it was one of those things where if you didn't have AG last game, you probably didn't cash at all. And we've been kind of a little bit low on him. At least I have. I know AP, you were very high on him in Game 3. And then Caleb Martin, that flop flag play of the day, right? We might get him in the starting lineup tonight under 6K. So it'll be interesting to see the adjustments that Spo makes. I think there has to be adjustments. Like, you're not going to win doing the same thing over and over again. And I think Spo knows that. It'll be interesting. Like Jokic, I think he has another gear that he can hit. So that's my favorite part too. I think Jokic is going to go nuclear, kind of the way we saw Giannis do it in 2021, where he put up a 50-piece, went to Chick-fil-A the next day and said, I want 50 nuggets. I think Jokic is going to do something very similar tonight, where you see one of those, he's a 2-time MVP for a reason. He's one of the best players that we've had in recent history. I think you see a statement game from him tonight, and I think the Nuggets take it easily.
Yeah, one thing, AP, before you go on, one thing I forgot to touch on. Like, I think Rubio kind of touched on it there, where Jamal Murray and Jokic, they did not play well at all. 13 for 36 from the field. It was the, quote unquote others that really stepped up here. Aaron Gordon had a massive game. Bruce Brown was amazing off the bench. And still, Miami had their chances, man. Like, they really fumbled the bag when Jokic came out with that 5th foul in the 4th. And I think they brought it within 5 or 6. But then Denver called a timeout, and then Jamal Murray hit an ATO 3 out of the timeout. Jeff Green hit a big corner 3, and then from there it was basically over. And then still, like, in my head, I was like, man, when is Malone going to bring Jokic back in? Because the game was kind of teetering between that 10-point lead and blowout. But Malone just stuck with his dudes, apart from Jokic, and Miami couldn't really pull back in and make the game close. I think that was a huge missed opportunity by Miami, just because that was just so big. Like, Scott Foster, the extendo clip came in, called the 5th on Jokic. I saw Big T going off on Twitter, getting triggered like this whistle's trash, and they're trying to give this game to the Heat, but the Heat couldn't capitalize, and I really think that's like a big momentum blow for them, because they just had all those things going in their favor and couldn't capitalize on it. So I just kind of wanted to. That was another big piece from the last game that I think we didn't touch on. So.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing too is this Nuggets team, they don't let up. They haven't. I mean, just go back to the Suns series. Obviously, the Suns may be a little notorious now for getting blown out in these, elimination type of games. We've seen that back-to-back seasons. I mean, Glock, your Mavs did it the year before, and then obviously this Nuggets team destroyed them, and then they swept the Lakers. What was that elimination game? Was that a blowout? I can't remember what that game was. I don't know if any of you guys.
I'll look it up.
I mean, it doesn't really matter.
It wasn't a blowout. It was a close game.
A close game, yeah. The point is, though, is this team, they've showed up in these spots, and you got to expect that's going to come tonight. The other thing, too, as we know, I like to track these pricing changes. Jimmy Butler is finally cheaper than Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, 12K in the utility spot. Jimmy Butler, 11.8. Jimmy started at 13.4. So I thought that was interesting. So Jokic, Murray, their prices have just continued to go up, arguably maybe making it tougher for them to be captain optimal. We haven't seen that yet through 4 games. All the captains have been cheapies or these mid-tier plays. Gabe Vincent and Aaron Gordon, two of the mid-tier guys, and then Christian Brown and Highsmith, obviously the other 2 guys. So that's just something that's interesting to track. I also think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a Miami Heat GP captain with these adjustments that you guys were talking to or alluding to with Max Strus potentially maybe getting less and less of a role. We got to see who slides in that starting lineup. But like Caleb Martin, his price has come down pretty substantially. And then Kyle Lowry, even though his role continues to go up, his price is the exact same. So really interesting mid-tier plays, I think, for Showdown in a Game 5 elimination game. Let's so if you remember, I added a few things in here today. So you'll see Game 1. Now again, this projection thing right here, I have no control over that. I can only control the first part of the name. So this is the Game 1 scores, the final results. Game 2, Game 3, Game 4, kind of like a box score, so you can see it. You can use it if you want. You could average it. You can do whatever. I think it's kind of interesting. That's actually what I did when I ran my first base build. So what's a base build? Base build, if you're new, we're running 150 lineups, 1,500 pool size, sim diversity 1, correlation 0, basically like cash type settings. And we want it sorted by highest projected, just to give us an idea of what our optimal lineups are looking at based on. So I used the full average. I used SaberSim's projections, my projections average, and then game logs 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought it would be interesting to see, to get kind of a first look, averaging everything out, all the data that we have, and seeing what the captains looked like, seeing what the utility looked like. So Rubio, when we do this, obviously we're going to get a decent amount of Aaron Gordon because he's had a few really nice games. So that average is going to look pretty nice. Bruce Brown, Bam, Kyle Lowry, Jamal. We are getting a little bit of Jokic, a little bit of Jimmy. What are you seeing here as far as our first base build goes?
Yeah, I mean, when you're averaging it across the game stuff, I mean, Aaron Gordon has been popping all series. It's no surprise seeing him at the top. And that first team that you see is like one of those where I think it's going to be chalky tonight. Even. I think you're going to see,
it's a good team.
It's a good team.
Chalky team.
It's like, damn, it's hard to beat because Duncan Robinson's going to be very chalk tonight, I think. I think at 3K with the 25 minutes he got last game. And we were talking about maybe the adjustment with Strus going to the bench potentially. It can only help Duncan Robinson's case, and he's one of the few values we have. And yeah, I mean, it's not really surprising to see. I mean, Bruce Brown, we were, we talked about him in Game 3, talked about him in Game 4, and it was nice to see him go nuclear. I think we can finally say the assumption where I separate Bruce Brown from MPJ. I think that one is safe to say. I thought MPJ played really well last game, to be quite honest, and he only got 22 minutes. I thought he played his role perfectly. I thought he was moving off the ball. And you look at the box score, he had 7-3 and then 0-0-0. It's like, damn, like this is just not an MPJ series, I guess. It's Bruce Brown series. So him and AG popping on the board. We obviously see Kyle Lowry where he's pushing the pace when he's in, and Gabe Vincent is not. And I think Gabe Vincent's going to be a really interesting option because I don't think we've seen Gabe Vincent's name come across yet. And that's even with 2 good games to start the series, with Game 1 and Game 2. But his last 2 games have been absolutely dog water. And there's no way around it. I mean, you can blame the fouls, you can blame the poor shooting, but I really like him as an interesting piece because I think Kyle Lowry is going to be super chalk, but he just might be a better fit in this series. We're not going to deny that. But Vincent's been a guy who is capable of getting 30, 35 plus fantasy points. And it takes one good shooting night. And I don't think Spo's afraid to roll him. But last game was just such a Kyle Lowry, blitz. Like Kyle Lowry hit a bank-in 3 and then was pushing the pace, and Gabe Vincent was doing all these things where he's just missing his shots and stuff. But I think that Lowry and Vincent debate, I didn't see the 2 point guard lineup really much at all last game. And that's going to be another thing. Do you separate Vincent and Lowry now? I think the answer is probably yes. And the Lowry Vincent debate is going to be one that's heavy on my mind. And obviously everything else around it. I mean, Jimmy Butler, it's surprising to see him in some teams despite – and maybe the price finally got low enough, AP. Maybe the price finally got low enough to take a chance on Jimmy this series.
Yeah, I do think Cody Zeller is now somewhat interesting because we have that min price on him as well. He hasn't been good, and you don't want a lot of Cody Zeller in there playing. But I do think the price is now interesting that he's min price. So you can kind of get away from, unless you think we're going to get a true blowout where it's an elimination game. Like to get that blowout script, they gotta be up by like 30. It could happen. I mean, it could happen. But Glock, what are you seeing here? And actually, I'm going to switch to, so then I ran this. So I ran this using the entire average, and then I went to my bias projections, and I'll pull that up right now. And even with my bias projections, I'm getting a lot of, let me just organize this a little bit better. A lot of Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown, Kyle Lowry, Bam, a little bit more Jokic. But yeah, what are you seeing here based off of our base build?
Yeah, I mean, they're real tasty builds for sure, because, obviously just imagine if you get that Duncan Robinson start, he's going to be already owned, like coming off the bench, most likely, just because he's closed the past few games. People are looking at the box score. He's getting a lot of chunk of minutes, has upside, obviously. Imagine if he gets to start, like he's going to be like that Kevin Love, when Kevin Love got deemed the starter, where everyone was going to jam him in. And I would probably do the same. And, just looking at your exposures, like, it's going to be really hard. Like it feels hard to get to Jokic captain. And obviously that's just a salary thing. Like I ran my vanilla projections before we got on, only got 3% of him at captain. And like the gap is $4,000 from him and the next guy, which is like pretty absurd. So like in turn, it makes me want to obviously get over the field on Jokic captain in large field tournaments, just because the math like makes it really hard to do. Like you just look at these Kyle Lowry builds, like they're just so good. All these guys are just going to play heavy minutes. And like, I basically agree with you, because the guys you're high on AP, Kyle Lowry, Bruce Brown, Jamal Murray, Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Bam Adebayo, those are guys that have solidified spots in this series, which we've seen, time and time again. Duncan Robinson, not to mention. And then you kind of take gambles on like guys like KCP. Can he get hot at home and help close them out? Caleb Martin, you mentioned. Gabe Vincent, Rubio said. Showdown's all about buying low on guys that, people do not want to click just because of recent bias. Like, just look at Haywood Highsmith early on in the series. No one wanted to click him. Next game, optimal. And then Aaron Gordon, no one really wants to click him. Optimal. Christian Brown, some people still clicked him, but the way he got there was a little different than everyone else. So in this game, it's Gabe Vincent coming off 2 stinkers. Caleb Martin, I still think people aren't going to click enough, and maybe that changes if he gets the starting nod. But buying low on players that MPJ we tried to make work last game. Obviously, he looked good from a basketball perspective, but DFS not really. But who's to say that like he can go home and get hot like and perform like how he's been the entire playoffs, right? We're sitting here right here saying it's not an MPJ series, but buying low on a guy like MPJ who has shown upside as recent as like a few games ago is a big thing to do, and that's how you get different, basically.
Real quick, I made a mistake. So I ran my base build off of SaberSim's projections, not my biased. So now this is actually correct. And again, I've been inflating Jokic all series long. I don't know if I like Jokic captain. We haven't seen it yet. I don't like, we've seen a monster game from him, and it still wasn't enough. A lot of it due to pricing. But I still like where my projections are. I'm just going to manipulate Jokic captain somehow. I might remove it. I just am not really seeing it. But do you have any additional comments? So, I mean, this is pretty different. We're not. So we're getting obviously a lot of Jokic, and then Kyle Lowry, someone I'm high on, and then Aaron Gordon. I think it was Aaron Gordon, Kyle Lowry, Bruce Brown, and then Jokic all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing that I'm definitely going to do tonight is like you're seeing 3-3, 3-2, 4-2, kind of leaning towards the Miami side, just sheerly due to pricing again. I would consider trying to make, like, I really think an interesting build tonight is like your captain is Miami. So let's say like Kyle Lowry or Duncan Robinson, kind of like a cheapish mid-tier Miami captain, and then going straight 5 Denver Nuggets in the util. I think that's one way to get different tonight where, it's kind of, in a way, it's somewhat a blowout. But if you have a guy like Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson on the Heat side, they're likely going to be closing the game, getting those minutes, producing fantasy points. And then on the opposite side, you have all your Miami pieces that are going to do well, obviously led by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. I think that's an interesting build. I'm curious to see if we get any. If not, I'm definitely more interested in kind of doing that myself in a segment of my lineups for sure.
If I did, so I love that. But if I did run a Jokic, build, it would actually look like this. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on this build right here? And a lot of it is due to just Cody Zeller min price. And again, Cody Zeller, he might not play, but he has, gotten in the game and gotten a few boards, and, getting 3.45 might be all that you need to, but we do need a monster game from Jokic though to be viable in this spot. And then Aaron Gordon obviously needs to do his thing, but we do have that. So we talked a little bit about some trends that we were seeing, and one of them was the Jokic, Bam, or Murray. And we got that. So the Jokic, Bam last game. And then Kyle Lowry's been the new guy that's started. And actually Gordon also. We've seen Gordon optimal in the utility and then the captain spot over the last 2 games. So, and then Kyle Lowry as well. It just seems like it's when I'm looking at these trends that, I would not be surprised at the end of the night, though, if we saw Kyle Lowry captain.
I agree. Yeah, I love Kyle Lowry tonight.
Yeah, so let me do this one other thing. So we looked at this last time. So I want to see in the utility spot how much Jokic, how much Bam. So this has been the strongest trend that we've seen. So of our 150, we're getting 60 builds with at least them too. And if we look at what their captain exposure is, I would assume that we get 15%. And so I would assume that we're way, way, way over. So there's not going to be too many builds without those two in there. And let me look at one other thing. I don't think with Jamal Murray's price going up and now being more expensive than Jimmy Butler, I'm not sure that we're going to get any maybe there we go, just one. So this, I always thought that if we got a Jokic Murray 2-man game, that's been one of the strongest correlations that we've seen, especially in tournaments too. It's just so hard to get when you're using an optimizer and projections. Rubio, let me kick it over to you. We spent a lot of time talking about this correlation specifically heading into game 4 because it was so strong in games 1, 2, and 3. I mean, is it like this build looks really interesting with Jeff Green hasn't done very much, but we talk about Kyle Lowry. I really think he's going to be an interesting captain tonight. And then you get this strong game. I could definitely see Jokic Murray closing it out with their 2-man game in game 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good team. I think Jeff Green's my favorite guy below 2K. I think you definitely want Christian Brown, and then even a guy like Duncan Robinson at 3K, 2.8K respectively. But even a guy like Cody Zeller, I got him projected for 2 AP, and he's going to hit a lot of these Jokic teams. And some of the Jokic captain teams don't have him or Highsmith. I projected Highsmith for 1, projected Zeller for 2, and they're hitting quite a bit. But that team is interesting. I mean, you got Murray, who has been absolutely cooking. I think a lot of people are going to opt for Jimmy Butler over Murray straight up. I don't know. I think it's a good rule of thumb because they've kind of been very similar prices on FanDuel. And not that, it's the same exact scoring or anything, but I'm going to go back to FanDuel when I get done talking, and I'm just going to compare the ownership to Murray and Butler over there. And again, it's not like the greatest thing in the world. You can kind of see a little bit of how it's been how many people are going Murray over Butler or vice versa, right? And obviously Butler had a decent game last game, and it felt like Butler played really well. He shot above almost 50% or above 50%, and he only ended up with 46. Is that his ceiling in this series? And Jamal Murray, he's got triple-double upside, as we saw. He's got 50-plus upside consistently in his bag. And if you're not going to captain Jokic, that Jokic-Murray 2-man game is kind of elite. And I think you kind of saw a direct correlation between Bruce Brown having a great game, not only with MPJ, but also Murray. I mean, Murray kind of ceded a little bit of the ball handling duties, a little bit of the shots to Bruce Brown because Bruce Brown was playing excellent. There's no denying it, but Bruce Brown is really effective with the ball in his hand. And so that's another thing where it's kind of worth looking at. If you captain Jamal or captain Jokic and stuff, maybe if you captain Jokic, you don't want Jamal because that's almost impossible here. But it's a lot of interesting builds. That top one that you showed with Lowry captain, that's really interesting. And if Jeff Green's going to pop a little bit, I only need 2 or 3 points from my 1K guy in these Jokic teams. And when you said you might not be that interested, I mean, the math is mathing, right? It's got to math at some point. And the whole series, it's been Jokic captain as one of my top teams. It's Bam Adebayo right now, and a half point behind is Jokic captain. And it's been so many mid-tier absolute nukes. It's been Gabe Vincent in games 1 and 2. It took Aaron Gordon in game 4, and it's been a mid-price Christian Brown and Jamal Murray, 66 and 23 combined. So they got 89 points combined between those two. Jokic captain has been entirely close outside of one individual performance each game in this series. And the math has to math at some point. I'm going right back to the Jokic well. He's hitting 40% of my teams at captain. Bam Adebayo is very close behind. I have Bam at mid-40s, a little bit below 45, I should say. But Lowry is very, very popular as well. I think those are the captain teams that I'm really looking at for the most part. But mid-tier, it's been smashing. Like you said, AP. I mean, we saw it in last game with Aaron Gordon. We saw it with Game Vincent in game 2. Like, it's definitely not worth for me to I'm only going to lock in Jokic and stuff. I do like that aggressive stand, but you'd be banking on a little bit of one of these mid-tier guys not going off for 35 plus. And I think that has to happen. All those mid-tier guys need to get less than 35, even less than 30 for Jokic captain to work tonight.
Yeah. And I think you got to run a couple Jokic captain builds. Like the other thing too is like Jamal Murray, we saw it was game. So the Christian Brown captain game, there was actually a build that was no one even had it, where Jamal Murray would have been optimal in the captain. So, but part of that took Reggie Jackson, which I don't think anyone played, min-price Reggie Jackson, who ended up getting in there. I think this is really interesting. And this is like projections drive so much. Like your projections, especially across the industry, they are going to have a big say on what ownership is, because so many people just plug in the projections, press optimize, and enter their teams. And here's the thing that's always like wild to me. So if we just look, like I'm high on Jamal. I think my bias projection would be higher than where the industry is at. I mean, maybe more in line, but I'm over where SaberSim by over 2 points, and then I'm under on Jimmy relative to where maybe the industry might be at by quite a bit. But still, I have Jimmy over Jamal. And then if you just go and look, and I know it's game 5's its own independent game, Jamal Murray's been better. Like Aaron Gordon's been an awesome defender all series long, all playoffs long. This dude not shut down, but I mean, like LeBron James played him really, really good. KD obviously played him really good. He's been playing Jimmy Butler really good. So I think one of the sharpest and sneakiest moves might be to just manually bump Jamal up. And it might be more of just like bumping Jimmy Butler down at the same time, but just doing this to make sure that we get, a more favorable projection on Jamal Murray. And that could be what it takes right there. Because we saw that one build that popped in. You could go either way. I would think that a lot of people would have Jimmy over Jamal in that build. Glock, let me kick it back to you. What's your thoughts on this? Because, I mean, you got to think now that Butler is cheaper than Murray, he's probably going to be more popular. You could see Murray being maybe a little bit under-owned. Do you have any thoughts kind of on those two guys that are priced so close together?
Oh, yeah, I love it. I think like looking around the industry, you look at Sabres projection, looking at other sites' projections, the price is everything. And a lot of sites have Jimmy Butler projected for more points than Jamal Murray, whether it be one point or 2 points. The fact that he's still projected higher means, and that he's $200 cheaper, means you're going to get more Jimmy Butler than Jamal Murray. That's just how the pricing works out based on your projection. So the number one way to do that is doing what you did, either bumping Jimmy Butler down to below Jamal Murray's projection or raising Jamal Murray's projection higher than Jimmy Butler, because a way you get different just based on, people that just build vanilla projections where they're just using base and not making any changes. Most of them are going to have Jimmy Butler projected higher than Jamal Murray. Whether or not I agree with that, I would say I do not, which, would in turn make me project Jamal Murray over Jimmy Butler. And I think the more that you increase the gap, like let's say you bump Jamal to like 50 and then Jimmy to 45, I think that's just going to get you more and more different from the field, because most people are going to project Jimmy over Jamal Murray. And because of that, because he's $200 cheaper, you're going to get more Jimmy Butler than Jamal Murray. Because just look at those beginning builds. I forgot to touch on, like, you didn't see a lot of Jamal Murray, especially. I don't think there was a Jamal Murray captain build at all. But if you change your projections accordingly, where you're bumping Jamal Murray, bumping down Jimmy Butler, I think you're going to get more Jamal Murray, whether it be in the Utah or captain spot, which makes him an amazing play. And like coming home, like Jamal Murray has just been the better player for sure in this series. There's no reason why Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray can go 1 and 2 when it comes to fantasy point production on this slate. The hard thing I will say is that, man, you plug in Jokic at captain and then Jamal Murray at util, you got 3,500 per spot left. So let me see if I flip that around. Let's see here. Put Jamal Murray at captain, Jokic 4K. That's a little more breathable for sure. You kind of hope like maybe Duncan Robinson gets a start, but those builds are definitely something I'm going to play with, even though it feels uncomfortable, because obviously if I feel uncomfortable building it, then the field most likely does too. So yeah, I love the route. Like you kind of basically hit on the head before I could even talk, where because Jimmy Butler is cheaper than Jamal Murray, it's going to really be key. And I'm sure Big T will touch on it on our premium show. It's going to be really key how you project these two guys, because that's going to dictate your exposure to these two people that are, essentially the other two studs besides Jokic.
Yeah. The more I think about it, I mean, I don't see how Jamal Murray gets a lot of ownership. The price just is continue. Like Jokic, I understand. Jokic is completely different, even though his price has gone up 2K compared to where he was at in game 1. Jamal Murray is up 1.2K from where he was in game 1, and that's just and then Jimmy Butler going the other way. You got to think that ownership switches to now people are playing Jimmy a lot more, just due to that price change, even though he hasn't been that good. I will say, if Miami somehow wins, you got to think Jimmy has his hand in that. So this might be another slate where I run a couple scripts where maybe I'm like 70, 80% this first script where I really create this scenario where it's a Jokic Murray 2-man type of game, and not like a blowout, but Nuggets comfortably winning and just putting a lot of pressure on Miami, and you see Miami forcing shots. Maybe, I like the Max Strus. So what I did so far is I bumped down Max Strus. I don't really like him. I bumped up Duncan Robinson, just kind of going off what you guys were saying. I bumped down MPJ. It's just different. Like this matchup wise, they've just been so much better without him, with Bruce Brown in there. With Christian Brown in there as well over MPJ. It would be different if MPJ was hitting shots, but outside of game 1, he hasn't really done that at all. Bam is going to be Bam. And then Aaron Gordon, I think, is like Aaron Gordon and Kyle Lowry are the two pieces that I think are most interesting. We've seen Kyle Lowry just get more and more run. 32 minutes last game. I mean, every single game. Game 1, 25. Game 2, 23. Game 3, 29. Game 4, 32. You got to think that they're going to have more Kyle Lowry in here, which is part of the reason why I like him. He's not a high usage guy. You need him to rack up the peripherals, but it's more so that price has not adjusted with the amount of minutes in his rotation that we're seeing now. And then Gabe Vincent, Rubia, do you have a thought on Gabe? I mean, Gabe Vincent was an absolute, ghost in game 4. I hate to adjust so quickly there, but do you have any thoughts on Gabe in this game and what we do with him? I don't think I've made any adjustments on him yet.
Yeah, I mean, so it's the Gabe Vincent conundrum. I mean, games 1 and 2, he goes absolutely off. He was critical in their game 2 win, right? And then game 3, foul trouble. Last game, sucked, rode the pine. But if he starts out decent at all, like this is one of those things where if the Heat land the first punch, like the Heat start going early, I think it could be a Gabe Vincent game over Kyle Lowry. I think it's worth the risk. Like, I am all for Kyle Lowry, right? I think he's a great play in a vacuum, right? But if you're looking for a little bit of leverage, like Kyle Lowry is probably going to come in at way more ownership than Gabe Vincent. And I think Gabe Vincent has just as much potential to get 30 as Kyle Lowry. I think he's a perfect tournament play. I wouldn't pair him with Kyle Lowry. I know that we talked about this multiple times. We've talked about it almost all through the playoffs in our Discord and everything. Do you pair Lowry with Vincent? Like eventually kind of got over like, oh yeah, you can do it. Spo runs the 2-point guard lineup. I don't think you do it this late. I think that you're able to separate them because if Gabe Vincent is playing poorly, it's probably a Lowry game. And if Gabe Vincent is playing really well, like Gabe Vincent is definitely worth the look. Like I really like the fact that Vincent's going to come in unowned and has potential to get 30 plus. Will he do it? Maybe not, but I think it's a great tournament play, low ownership, great leverage. And then I also look at a guy like Aaron Gordon. You talk about him being very interesting. What's Aaron Gordon's ownership going to be? I think it almost gets near 50 tonight. I think he was kind of almost a little bit chalk last game. He was very chalk all series. He's always in that price range, and MPJ continues to underwhelm. And he's the only person in that island of pricing. Like, it funnels you. If you're anywhere in that mid-tier and you have enough, everyone's going to click on Aaron Gordon's name. And I almost think he comes in really high owned today. And I think it's a perfect leverage spot to get different. And this is where I've been debating MPJ the whole time. MPJ has one good shooting night. Maybe he can get there. But we've kind of ultimately decided it's not an MPJ series. Despite looking really good on the basketball court, he only got a 7-3, only got 11 fantasy points, really. So I think that it's a really interesting call with Gabe Vincent. And Aaron Gordon's also the other conundrum that I have here on the slate. But also, I looked at FanDuel ownership. Jimmy Butler was clocking in at 13% higher when he was 500 less than Murray last game. Probably going to see something similar where, like you guys said, just to confirm, Butler's going to be more popular than Murray tonight at that pricing.
So, actually a couple things too. And the other reason I did this is we get so locked into like what happened last game. MPJ is going to start. If he comes out and hits his first like 4 shots or something like that, you think Malone's going to take him out of the game? No, not at all. Like, if you go back to game 1, 38.25. If he puts up 38.25, now he's 6.2K. I mean, he was 7.6K in game 1. Like, the price has come down so much, and MPJ's got to be somewhat low owned. No one likes him. His projection is super low. It should be super low across the industry. So if we just I don't know, it's the final game of the year, an opportunity to get a lot of leverage. Just going back to some of these guys, Gabe Vincent over Kyle Lowry. I know I spent the majority of the show early on stroking Kyle Lowry just because we see that trend. It's Spoelstra, man. If Gabe Vincent has that game, he's gonna stick with him, and he's more of a he's gonna take shots, whereas Kyle Lowry is more of a game manager type. So your upside naturally, and you see it right here, your upside with Gabe Vincent is naturally going to be higher. Your floor relative to what we saw in games 4 and 3, maybe a little bit lower there. But again, you could get somewhat unique just by going back to some of these things, like making these Jamal Murray over Jimmy Butler, MPJ over Aaron Gordon.
Exactly.
Would be one. Gabe Vincent over Kyle Lowry. So when we're running kind of our script here, Glock, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so not to derail you, but we may have to kind of rebuild here because breaking news from Woj, Miami's Tyler Herro, who was upgraded to questionable, is expected to suit up and attempt to return tonight. So
nice.
Let's go.
You add him back into the pool or whatever, but from a high level, obviously we want to see what they do with Herro. I don't think he's going to start. I think he'd definitely come off the bench. I still do think that Miami's going to do a lineup change. But man, I think for me, I'm curious to hear y'all's takes. It makes me less interested in Miami pieces, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like just because he's going to take away usage. I don't know. Obviously, we'll want to pay attention to coach speak. And, if you haven't joined the Discord and you're a member, definitely get into the Discord because we're going to post all the tidbits that you need to know about, Spoelstra's pregame press conference and whatnot and what he has to say about Herro. But maybe we get an idea of how much Tyler Herro is going to play. And then, overall, that can't help Miami's pieces. Okay, it might help them from a real basketball life perspective, but it's not going to help them from a fantasy perspective. These guys are priced for life without Herro from a DFS pricing perspective. And when you just insert a guy like that, it's just going to take usage away from everyone. And I already see AP going in, bumped out.
Yeah, we got to bump some of these guys
That's
down.
exactly what I'm going to do, like if Herro gets ruled in. So, yeah, that's kind of a new wrinkle into tonight's slate, which I like. But, yeah,
Who do you think's unaffected? Like Bam? Bam,
Yeah.
I don't think is.
Yeah, the bigs are generally the guys that, that they're under the basket. They have that rebounding upside. Tyler Herro is a good rebounding guard, but like I said, he's been injured. This will be his first game action back. I don't think he's going to be crashing the boards like crazy.
I just at this point, like, does it even help him? Like defensively, does it like
know.
it makes me almost like the Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic 2-man game even more. Like who's he gonna like
worse than Strus or Duncan?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know, like Tyler Herro. He had like I don't even think he was like that good down the stretch of the season too. He was like kind of ice cold there for a bit, if my memory serves me right. Now I can't. So Saber, when a player gets ruled out, they're automatically just taking them out. I can't manually add them back in, I think, until so you see his grade out here, even though I put him back in.
Gotcha.
We'll have to wait. What playing around with though, what we can do is bump some of these guys down. But can you even create, so like pricing wise, he's right by Gabe and Kyle Lowry, right between them. With the amount of time he's been out, I mean, like, what would you guys put as far like Rubio? Go to you first. If they came out and said he was going to start, which that's a stretch, most likely comes off the bench. What's like the range of projections that you're putting on a guy like Tyler Herro in this situation?
20, and I'll make my case here. I think Herro is what they need. I think Herro is someone they need to be able to create their own shot, and Lowry and Vincent, even though I like Vincent stuff, is not capable of just consistently making his own shot. I think here it wasn't like a leg injury. It wasn't like Herro was sitting on the couch eating potato chips, waiting for something to heal up. It was his hand. I have full confidence in his cardio that he's going to be fine. You know, he might not be in NBA fitness shape where he's not going to go out there and play 35 minutes. I think you could definitely see 24 plus minutes. And Herro's a guy, we know he's a high usage guy. He comes in, he commands the ball. He's dominant on the ball. I think you're going to see, I think GoFi's puts in, Herro's going to take some of Butler's shot. I think, Herro's going to come in and take a lot of usage, and it makes me like these guards way less. I think you could see Strus completely taken out of the rotation, not just start, but Strus completely taken out of the rotation. I think this hurts Duncan Robinson a lot. So Duncan Robinson chalk at 3K, what becomes of it now? But I think you're going to see Herro come in, and if he hits his first couple shots and stuff, like he wanted to be sure that this hand was good before he played. And I think that they were very cautious with him. And I think 5-4, we're getting a gift here. I think you're going to get an unowned Herro. And what's that price on FanDuel too? I got to put him into the system right now and check it out. Let's go ahead and do that. Like on FanDuel, he was very cheap. He was 8K. Let's check it out now. It is 11K now. Damn it, they took away the
oh my god, really?
FanDuel, but I'm super interested on both sides. I maybe not FanDuel at 11K, but DraftKings at 5-4, direct leverage off Lowry, direct leverage off Bruce Brown. Maybe it's not direct leverage off Bruce Brown, but it's still like a good pivot off Bruce Brown. I'm the big fan of Herro tonight if he plays. I just am.
Glock, what about you? I'm torn. Man. I'm so torn, man.
I'm torn, but from a tournament perspective, like you got to have some interest because Tyler Herro ain't no Max Struss where he's going to be out there for 20 minutes and going to put up 0 fantasy points. I will say his injury, Marie Don Yeezy, was it his non-shooting hand? It was his right hand, so it is his shooting hand, which obviously is a concern. But like you said, there was rumblings early in the series where Shams was coming out and saying that, Tyler Herro has the possibility of returning for Game 3. I think it was actually before the series, before the series started, where we kind of expected Tyler Herro to come back at a certain point, and then after I think they won Game 2, they kind of pulled back on that. Maybe like we can take it easy, and then I don't know if he experienced a setback or what, but obviously this is an elimination game. All the chips are on the table, and I'll have some Tyler Herro for sure. I'm not going to completely fade him. But I do like him. I mean, you just imagine a build where you have, 5,500 to 6K left over. You could kind of go down the list of like, okay, I could play Caleb Martin. I could play Gabe Vincent. I could play Tyler Herro. He's right in between. And then in between him, at a cheaper price, you have Bruce Brown and Kyle Lowry. So he's kind of squeezed in a spot where people are not going to want to click his name. And just from a tournament large field perspective, it's going to want me to get in there.
What do you think? So, like, not talking about, I guess, let's just say if they did start him, what do you think the starting lineup looks like? Do you think Kevin Love goes back to the bench? Do you think they go Caleb Martin, Tyler Herro?
I don't think they would start Tyler Herro. I would be shocked. I mean, maybe Spo. I mean, Spo has some cojones, so maybe he would. But I think maybe they drop Struss from the starting lineup.
I mean, what's the risk that, like Rubio said, it's not a cardio issue, most likely. I mean, it's the last hurrah.
I mean, yeah, he has been their starter when he was healthy, so we'll see. I mean, what do you think, Rubio?
I think if you see him coming off the bench, I
got Rubio's build right here.
The layup lines. Look how Herro's looking in them layup lines, right? I think honestly, he's been practicing for a week straight. It looked like he was ready to return a week ago, but he might have experienced some swelling, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him start. If he starts, his ownership will definitely be ballooned up. But if he's coming off the bench, I think it's still really sneaky. I don't think this is anything like the Love news. Mario Danizi. I don't think Love was super cheap. Love was coming in with a role that we knew he was probably going to start both halves. We've already seen him in the playoffs. Herro comes in with a lot of question marks, and people don't like question marks, especially on Showdown. But I think if he starts, he becomes a guy who I immediately love in all my lineups. But if he's coming off the bench, I think it's sneaky. I think those minutes are going to be there for him.
Even coming off the bench, it's not like he's cheap. It's not like Kevin Love when he was rolled in the starting lineup. He was, I believe I have the number. He was $3K, and now he's $3. I mean, he's 5.4K. It's not free. He's the same price as Kyle Lowry, who has established increasing role, and then Gabe Vincent, who not dominated but played well in the first two games. He's he's a raw scoring dependent type of guy. So I think there are some risks there, but ownership wise, we'll have to see. And a lot of people are going to be scrambling. They're going to be looking at projections across the industry. And that's what I think is going to dictate his ownership here. But I don't know, Rubio, it'll be really interesting. I think Coach Speak will be, and it's Spoelstra. He might not say anything. We just might have to wait till we see the starting lineup. I mean, what do you do, Rubio, before I kick it over to Glock? What do you do if the wording from Spoelstra is, and he's not starting? Where are you getting him at? If
he becomes coy and goes Herro, yeah, he's active and doesn't say he's going to play, then I'll be concerned. But it becomes more of a thing where if he's coming off the bench, you group him away from Vincent and Lowry, maybe you do a max of 2. What it becomes a grouping thing for me. We can still be high in Vincent, Lowry, and Herro, and still still like Herro, but still make sure you get a fair share of Gabe and Lowry, right? I think it becomes very much a grouping thing tonight. That if Spo comes out and says he's going to come off the bench, who do you think that hurts the most? Does it hurt Lowry the most? I think that's going to be interesting. It's kind of tough to put the thoughts on the fly right now, but it is also fun.
Are you okay, Rubio? Are you bullish on him? You're expecting him to start, yeah? You're kind of gung ho on him when the news came out. In your head, you're expecting him to start.
I'm not expecting him to start.
MPJ. All right, so here's my point. MPJ is only 800 or so more than him. I mean, how are we playing him over MPJ? And MPJ might not get a ton of ownership, and his price has gone way down.
Oh, for sure. And MPJ, we talked about a great tournament leverage playoff, Aaron Gordon. I think you also look at it from Herro's perspective, where this is a guy who, when he's been in, 35 minutes a game, he gets 35 DK a game, right? I could see 24 minutes off the bench, and you just do the math right there. Obviously might not be aggressive on the boards or anything, but then we're getting into health specifics. But 24 DK for Herro at that price is enough to hit a ton of teams. It's enough to give him a bump over Vincent, over Lowry, over Bruce Brown. I got those guys projected for the low 20s for the most part, Lowry being the kind of exception, but he definitely gets a hit from Herro being in, right? So you're going to have a bunch of guys projected for low 20s. All Herro has to do is get above 22, 23, and he's got a great shot at being off ball. I don't think the same can be said for MPJ because that 800 is a lot. And if it's in Jokic captain teams, you're kind of already a little bit squeezed for salary. But Herro provides those savings and that direct leverage off these Miami guards. And that's why I like it. I think it's great for a tournament perspective, but not in your single entries and stuff. Maybe you don't want to take that risk, but it's going to be fun to see how it goes out.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Glock, any thoughts on that?
I love it. I mean, it's it's buying into that uncertainty. You're buying low, for Tyler Herro right here for sure. And he has upside, man. I'm looking at one of his last games in the regular season, played 38 minutes. Okay, the starting lineup was Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Gabe Vincent, Tyler Herro, Max Strus. They ran an 8-man rotation against the Detroit Pistons in a close game, and the 3 that were off the bench were Kevin Love, Caleb Martin, and Kyle Lowry. Obviously, this is going to be a big change because there's no Duncan Robinson in the rotation here, and then there's no Cody Zeller. Those guys were DNP coaches' decisions, but they ran a tight 8-man rotation here with Caleb Martin playing 30 minutes off the bench, Kyle Lowry 23, and then Kevin Love played 17, which is like, I think that's going to change for sure, but that's just something to keep in mind because these guys can play heavy minutes. Like I said, I think you really want to be in the Discord because we're going to drop all the coach speak nuggets in there. And I think that's where we're going to find an edge. And man, I'm pretty excited now because I want to see what that Tyler Herro ownership comes in at, because I know it's like, I don't like to victory lap ownership, when a slate starts, like, oh man, I got a guy 1 or 3% owned. Well, still, they still have to perform, but it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he starts, and then what his ownership comes in at, because he's just squeezed in between guys, like you said, AP. Like, you just rather click those other guys, and in that way, when we see how ownership shapes up, I just want to get over the field personally, most likely. I mean, it may not take much to get over the field, but me personally, I do want to get over the field, especially if he's starting.
Yeah, so the other thing too that this could, like Rubio, I might be like the one thing this could do is really make Denver 4-2 builds attractive. We know what the Nuggets are going to do. Like that's set. All the question marks are on the Miami side. And what I'm doing here is kind of what we talked about, just like bringing everyone down a little bit. Maybe it's one of those games where you see a wider rotation. Like Spoelstra's just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. You know what I mean? Like adjustment wise, I think Tyler Herro is, what was the projection you put on him? Rubio 20 to 23.
Yeah, 22. Like you just did with Lowry and Vincent, you downgraded him a bit, and all of a sudden he looks a lot more attractive than it did 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. Then let's go back to this script where it's like, we like, so it's like this Jokic Murray 2-man game where things are a little bit more spread out on the Miami side. A lot of uncertainty right now. Like when we're running this, a lot of uncertainty. If Tyler Herro was starting, that would be, I don't know, I 25, 20. Like how aggressive would you get, Rubio, compared to starting versus
I'm
off
going to
the
prediction
bench?
for 30, and I'm going
30?
to get of the field. And I think that means he's fully healthy.
Go 30, but
I will 100% go 30.
I like it.
Oh yeah, because I think that means that Spo we need fucking offense, and he provides offense. I don't care how he does it. It only takes a 20-point game really for him to hit 30. I mean, that's all. And I think Herro is their best offensive player straight up right now. And because Jimmy's being defended by AG, like it's got to funnel to these guards. And we saw Gabe Vincent already have a couple big games. I'm locking Herro if he starts. That's that. I think the decision really comes in if he's coming off the bench. What do you do? But if he starts, he's auto in my lineup. I'll tell you that.
We ought to like the over a little bit more too, right? If that happens, you got to think we see a little bit more offense. You would think anyway.
That's where Miami's had success. I mean, you hear it on the broadcast so much. Gabe Vincent, it's kind of a slower pace, and then Kyle Lowry comes in and he pushes it. And Jeff Van Gundy's in there like saying, "Oh, Gabe Vincent needs to take notes from Kyle Lowry. Look at how he's pushing the pace." Yeah. And Tyler Herro, obviously, we don't know his conditioning or whatnot, but theoretically he should push the pace. So. Yeah, I mean, one nugget I'm going to throw in there just because, I have another optimizer where I just threw Tyler Herro in there. I projected him for 20 and he's hitting 15% just like with no changes. So just something to keep in mind. Like he's still hitting with just 20 fantasy
with
points,
with just 20.
Yeah.
He's in your number one team
with 27. Yeah.
Yeah. D-Rob with, this Jokic Murray with, and I still think even with Tyler Herro in, I still see the industry being heavier on Jimmy Butler in relation to Jamal Murray. I mean, could we agree on that?
Correct. Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too. I could be wrong, but yeah, some of these builds are, this is wild. But again, I might be, it's a closeout game. We see weird stuff happen all the time. I'm not even going to rule out like 5-1s. I don't like 5-1s very much, but not something I'm going to rule out. And yeah, we are getting quite a bit of Tyler Herro, which is interesting. So
with
again,
the 27 projection, right, and not Rubio's 30 juicer projection.
That'll be.
Oh yeah, but I mean, if we gave so like just pricing wise, if we gave Kyle Lowry the same projection, he would, we'd be seeing the same thing.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, it's all relative. If you haven't yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. It helps us out a lot over here at Rumpier Sports. We got a promo going on, Summer 33. Get 33% off your first payment over here at Rumpier Sports. Running this all through the summer. Big week too. U.S. Open going to be. I mean, this course should be playing really tough. There was a par 3 that's almost 300 yards. And Rubio, you responded to me on Twitter. Why aren't you taking driver? Look, it's a 290 carry. I'm not carrying it. I'm a big guy, but I can't carry a 290 with my driver. I don't have it in me at all. I'm just playing hitting that fairway with my 5-iron, get me a little wedge, probably even miss the green with my wedge. But no, I'm excited. This is a big boy course. Snyder, I was talking to him too. He still thinks like these target golfers are going to be in play because it should be playing firm and fast. It's going to be really interesting. We got a ton of content though. So what I'm getting at, use the code SUMMER33. Also use it because we got Big T, we got JSU coming up on the premium show later today. That's going to be for subscribers only. So use that code SUMMER33, 33% off. Subscribe, hit the like. Let's get to our final thoughts, our score predictions, and our favorite captain, Rubio. I'm going to start with you.
It's bittersweet, like Locke said at the begin. It's the Nuggets winning. It's our last NBA slate of the season. But, hey, come back for WNBA. Come back for Summer League. You know it. Denver, 112. Miami, 101. Denver covers. The over hits. Tyler Herro, if he starts, is my favorite captain. He's off the bench.
Oh, man. Tyler Herro. But you hate Kyle Lowry and Gabe Vincent. No, you liked who did you like before we got it? The Tyler Herro news.
I love the Lowry Vincent pick,
Lowry,
right?
Okay,
you had to pick one, right? But now it becomes Herro over both of them for me.
How quickly his slate change is insane.
I know it is, and we still got to wait for the starting lineup.
Yeah.
We don't know what Spoelstra is going to do. I mean, there's so many changes that they could make, and it's going to be one where you got to be by your computer. And unfortunately, my son has he does like competitive swimming. He's got a swim meet tonight. So it's just going to be, I'm going to be like our guy, Big T, with my little laptop out there at the swim meet. So all will be fine. All will definitely be fine. And dialing in the slate. Glock, what is your score prediction and favorite captain?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, AP, I think our show with Big T and JSU, it's going to run up to lock. So even more incentive to become a member, use that code SUMMER33 because they're going to walk you through and react live on air, to what the starting lineup is, who gets the bumps, who gets the, downgrades and stuff like that. But yeah, I think despite the Tyler Herro, energy injection tonight, I think it is the end of the road. It's a tall task to ask for, to go into Denver, have it be your first finals game. Not ever. He's been in the finals before, but, coming off injury and whatnot, I still do think Denver gets it done here. So I'm going to say 109 Denver, 104 Miami. So kind of a closer game script, kind of similarly to how Denver closed out the Lakers. But yeah, 109, 104 Denver. And then I'm going to still say, I think my favorite captain's Aaron Gordon. sad as it is, I've just been kind of not playing him. And then it feels kind of chasey to get onto him. I know the ownership will be there, but I think Aaron Gordon unlocks you a lot, especially in that blowout build. Because like I mentioned earlier in the show, if you start Jamal or you start Jokic, gets a little crazy where, you're funneled for salary. But yeah, I think from a GPP large field perspective, I did say 109, 104, but I think you can definitely script a blowout here. So I would say Aaron Gordon, I think he's good in both scripts because he allows you to balance out your lineup, with strong plays from both sides. But it also allows you to have a nice 5-1 build if you really want to, which is favored towards the Denver side.
Yeah, very good. So we're sweeping. I'm on the Nuggets also. I think we're going to see a little bit more pace tonight. I really like this kind of two-man game that I think we really see a lot of from Jokic, Jamal Murray. I think Murray does it, man. I think Murray, I can't say he's my favorite captain right now. I got to rerun my numbers, and there's a lot left that we still need. But I'm going to be high. Like, my main move is I'm going to project Jamal Murray over Jimmy Butler. So I'm going to have Jamal Murray's projection higher, and I'm going to have him way over whatever the industry is. And then I'm going to have Jokic up there as well. I think I'm going to bring Aaron Gordon down, and I'm going to bring MPJ up, but not a ton. I think what I think we see is that Jokic and Murray, those two close it out. And I think it's a fairy tale ending for our guy Big T and for the Nuggets nation getting their first championship, right? Yeah,
love it. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
Shades of Dallas Mavericks with Dirk Nowitzki for me. Yeah, so I'm gonna be texting Big T, feeling good with him. Big Euros getting it done. I always love it. So especially for the first time and for the franchise. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, very good. All right. We appreciate all of you watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe on the way out. Sign up for Rubio, for Glock. This has been a ton of fun. If we get another game, we're going to be right back here doing the same exact thing, but we all don't think it happens. If it does, awesome. We will all admit we were wrong, and we'll dial in the next game. But I don't see that happening. So until next time, for Rubio, for Glock, I'm AP. Rumpier.